Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Blessed Be event, in which the Blessed Maiden is added to the game. Before we get over to all the weekly stuff, I do briefly want to go over version 7.5. Of course, we had the 7.5 patch last Tuesday, and personally I didn't feel like there was enough to really justify covering a whole separate video for it, so we're just going to simply cover it right now. So there isn't too much to really go over. Of course, the main thing that we end up getting, if you go over to PvP system and then over to alliances, is this new alliance system. If you have not yet joined an alliance, you will see 5 choices. However, there are basically 2 choices, either Dark Alliance or not Dark Alliance. They are both pretty valid picks depending on what you're looking for. If you pick anything that is not Dark Alliance, at least on PC Mobile, then you will be getting 20% bonus stats to everything you do in PvP due to owning 0 citadels. If you pick Dark Alliance, you'll be able to go earn more gold marks throughout the week. Initially, I thought it was all on Monday, but apparently it's right after victory. So, for example, today we have Summer Isle and Winter's Reach. And when Dark Alliance ends up winning both these 2 locations this week, the following day you'll be able to go get a gold mark bonus on that. What that basically means is, you know how you have various bonuses, like let's say right over here, if it'll ever let me click on it. Right now this is currently giving silver marks. However, tomorrow, when we do this, it will end up giving us gold marks if you're in the Dark Alliance. The exact amount, I forget how much. It deteriorates based on how many people are in the Alliance, so I'm not sure exactly what that number will be. But basically, it comes down to pick Dark Alliance if you want slightly more gold marks, or pick anything that isn't Dark Alliance if you want slightly more stats when doing PvP. So in Dark Alliance, you'll be able to go take things like this for some small amount of extra gold marks throughout the week. You can only do it at a cap of once per location per week. Which, given that Dark Alliance will own everything, that basically means every location you'll be able to do once per week. And pick the anything else if you want 20% just bonus stats in order to get PvP done quicker. If you don't really care too much about PvP, just want to get in, get out, then anything that isn't Dark Alliance is for you. But otherwise, Dark Alliance seems to be winning absolutely everything, at least on PC Mobile. I'm not sure about other platforms. So that's basically it. Dark Alliance for slightly more gold marks, everything else for 20% bonus stats in PvP. PvP. But anyways, there are a few other rewards that you get for having allegiance to your alliance. It is generally ideal to stay in whatever first alliance you pick. There's a couple reasons for this. One is you get daily silver and gold marks. Well, I don't know if we know the full distribution of the ranks. Based on how it's going so far, it seems like you'll get up to 10 silver marks up to Centurion 2. And then it seems like it's going to go into gold mark. So we've got 1 gold mark, 2 gold mark, 3 gold mark, 4 gold mark, and then 5 gold mark, up to a total of either 5 gold marks and 10 silver marks daily, or something like 5 and 15. We don't currently quite know if that's going to be the case, but it does seem like it's going to be about a 510, 515, somewhere around there, as far as how much you'll be able to earn daily once you get all the way to the top. Obviously, this is based mostly on how many days that you're within a given one, so you basically want to stay there as you'll gain quite a bit of extra rewards for that. Beyond that, you want to be doing the Citadel battles. The way that the Citadel battles work is every Monday you'll have 2 outer ring, every Tuesday you'll have 3 inner ring, and by that I mean the 3 colors in the middle here. So in this case, green, brown, and purple. On Wednesday, there will be nothing. On Thursday, there will be 2 outer ring. On Friday, there will be 2 outer ring, which now concludes all of them, except for Central, which will be on Saturday, which you then do Central. And then Sunday is voting if you're in the Dark Alliance, where you basically get to vote on all the perks that are in a given area, as well as just having no battles on that given day. So just to reiterate, it's starting from Monday, going all the way through. It's Monday 2 outer, Tuesday 3 inner, Wednesday none, Thursday 2 outer, Friday 2 outer, and Saturday inner. And then Sunday, of course, none once again. And that's when you have all the battles. And if you ever want to reference it, that is all laid out right here as far as like, hey, this one's vulnerable in 2 days, 14 hours, blah, blah, blah. That's basically what all that is right there as far as all the timings for them. So basically Wednesday and Sunday do nothing. Every other battle you have alliance fights. And it is a good idea to do those alliance fights regardless of the size of your alliance. The main reason being is you do earn gold marks simply for partaking. You get 6 battles, and of those 6 battles, you have to win at least 5 times. After 3 battles, you get 5 gold marks, and after 5 battles, you'll fight this little guardian thing in the given location in a special battle, and you'll earn 10 gold marks and 2 swift emblem thingies, which are basically just a 50% mana start, which you could use occasionally. Not too useful, but can come into play. It gives all allies a swift for 1 singular fight, which is situational. Generally speaking, if you're able to take these, there's not really much that you would necessarily need to bring these out for. If you really feel like you might end up losing a fight or something, you could bring them out occasionally, but you'll be able to earn, what is that then, 10 of these per week then. We only have 8 because, of course, it came out on a Tuesday to patch, so we're not able to do the Monday fight, so you can earn 10 of those per week, which is not a huge amount, but if you want to kind of stockpile them maybe, or just use them sparingly on harder fights here or there, you can end up doing so. But that's pretty much it. It's basically just a way to end up earning slightly more gold marks. They didn't actually change anything with the shop, surprisingly. So currently, as far as dumping all your gold marks, it is still ideal to be just dumping it all into deed books. Your deed books over here. Actually, might as well do it now. I've been starting to slowly dump them, see if we could actually get anything good here. Of course, we're looking for those purple deed books. We got double purple the other day, but nope, no purple for us today. But yeah, I've just been kind of just slowly dumping out all of my gold marks in until we kind of hit 0 and just get a bunch of deeds in return. But anyways, let's start getting into all of the normal stuff for our given weekly event. Starting with, oh, hey, tribute's ready. Nice. All right, anyways, starting with everything related to Whitehelm. So we have Whitehelm, Whitehelm, and Whitehelm this week. If you like Whitehelm, well, do we have Whitehelm? Of course, last week we had the rebounds to Whitehelm. However, this week we have every single thing related to Whitehelm concluding. Not only do we have a Whitehelm event week, we also end up having a Whitehelm Kingdom Pass that is concluding this week, while also having a Whitehelm campaign, which of course we'll be able to get the final rewards from that, the new Mythic, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, a lot of things concluding with Whitehelm this week. So definitely plenty to end up doing in that regard. Unfortunately, most of the reworks didn't really do too much. Overall, mostly the Mythics were really the only big beneficiaries from it. Anyways, as far as the new troop, it's a great time to stock up on blue, yellow arcanes if you end up needing it. It's only 200 glory each to end up stocking up on them if you want to mass buy them. As far as your troop itself, it's pretty underwhelming, unfortunately. It's just a tanking troop that doesn't even do tanking particularly well compared to other things that can tank while also doing quite a bit of damage, like that one Topaz Giant and a few other things from the location. But anyways, as far as what it does, it deals a bunch of damage to an enemy boosted by all allies with barrier, and it gains barrier. It does have a pretty hefty boost ratio, but this will mostly only help you really early on in the game. Later in the game, having 40 additional damage is not really going to do that much, whereas earlier on in the game, obviously 40 damage is quite substantial. It will also be pretty good in arena in those niche situations where you might end up drafting it for so, assuming anyone plays arena anymore. Though we do have an arena event this weekend, so who knows, maybe she'll be in there. She has a little bit of score reduction, but for the most part, you're not really ever using this as your tank. There are way better tanks out there. And I don't personally see a use case for this outside of pretty much arena events where she scaled pretty well for that event. But outside of that context or a brand new player that just started in the last few weeks, there isn't too much of a need to really bring her out. Anyways, other things that we have going on. Of course, given that we have a billion Whitehelm related things this week, you guessed it, we have a Whitehelm event key drop table. As far as Whitehelm is concerned, it's okay to go for. There's nothing too special for the most part. The lower rarity, if I could ever get down to the thing right there. Show that, show all in case I'm missing something. I don't know these days with those little guardian thingies. I think we are missing a few things, but these things will be obtainable in the very near future. There's a lot of things to mention that are not in drop table right now, though. So everything that is currently not in drop table. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting. They changed the artwork of Priestess. That always throws me off. It's like, what is this new troop that they added? But no, that's just the new art for Priestess. They actually changed that several patches ago. But anyways, let's go over the very long list of things that are not in drop table. The Witch Winder, or Witch Finder, is not in drop table. She's from the current Kingdom Pass. The Retribution is not in drop table. He is from the current raid event. The High Cleric is not in drop table. She's from the current Kingdom Pass. The 5 Guardian troops are not in drop table. They are from the Hall of Guardians faction. The 2 of Swords is not in drop table. It is currently unobtainable through any drop table. It is from the current oh gosh, the current... there's too many passes right now. It's from the current season pass. This is in drop table, but specifically in the Vault Key drop table. Let's see, what else? Oh, sorry. No, this is also... Wait. No, this isn't the other tarot card. No, wait. Sorry. Both of these are not in drop table, my bad. This is from... Gosh, there's too many passes right now. This is from the current campaign pass. And this is from the current Kingdom Pass, neither of which are in Volky drop table right now. Sorry about that. Then we have the Commander Dawnheart, which is also not in drop table right now. He's in Kingdom Pass. We have ourselves the Solar Rithis, which is in the Celestial Dragon drop table, which is, of course, not in event keys. And then lastly, we have the Amid Teal, which is in the campaign season pass. Anyways, those are all the many ultra things that are not in drop table for right now for event keys. So do be wary that a lot of things that you're missing, it's a good chance they're not in drop table right now because they're all just a billion different events going on related to Whitehelm right now. That's the full rundown. Anyways, things that are in drop table. Is it worth doing? Kind of. 2 out of 3 mythics here, really good. Guard's Avatar just got buffed. It has a 1-to-1 ratio on its magic now instead of half. And it also gains 8 armor every single time it casts, or anything casts on your team, rather than 4. Overall, much better than it was before. Still used for the same things, mostly Tuesday faction events, which this Tuesday watch will be the first time we really get to use them. Libram, completely pointless. Worst, I wouldn't say worst mythic in the game, but pretty close to worst mythic in the game. Horrible if you get that. And then Archdivas. This also got buffed crazily high in the most recent patch. It now has a whole extra set of magic, so it has a 3 times boost ratio instead of 2 times for how much it does based on its magic. I believe its base value is also up by a few. And it just gives a ton of stats to whatever you end up targeting. Also giving them all their mana. Really good in skull spam teams, but can also be used just to keep something tanky. For example, we're going to be using it this week on Solarithus in order to not only be able to cast its ability twice, once when it gets full mana, once again when the Archdiva gets full mana, but also it would make it super tanky, gaining a bunch of durability that we'll be able to use with both of its 2 reductions. So you don't always have to use it in a skull spam team, but generally speaking, this is used for skull spam teams like Lord of Slaughter, Wild King, and various related things. Aside from that, as far as some lower rarity stuff that you might want to end up picking up, Hoisting Astra, if you own a Tesla, you probably want to make sure you open every event key you have until you get her this week, if you currently don't have Hoisting Astra to go with your Tesla. She gives 50% mana start to all humans, and there aren't too many use cases for this in the current state of the game, but its biggest use case is to make Tesla just run through the entire game. Running Hero double Tesla into Hoisting Astra, or off-placing some other mana accumulation. Really, really solid team. And not only that, but she also gives additional armor for the Tesla, of course, which also boosts ratios off of armor. So it works out really well for that. It's very niche when you bring it out, but it's one of the few cases where she actually gets a lot of value. Aside from that, the only other thing you're kind of looking for, if you don't already have it, is probably Mercy. Mercy was the OG Empower converter, and to this day is still a really strong one. It has Empower and to convert into yellow, purple to yellow specifically, but he also gives a bunch of life to your weakest ally, so it hopefully doesn't die, while also cleansing all allies. So it's a really good, quick cleanser. And to this day, despite being the very first Empower in the game of its convert type, it is still among one of the stronger ones in the game. So if you don't have it laying around, definitely a good utility. Speaking of utility things, well, this is even lower rarity, and you probably already have it around. If you're a brand new player and happen to not have Angry Mob, really great mana accumulator. Biggest thing that's really good about him, well, you might have a little bit lower magic, or quite a bit lower magic, so you won't get as many destroys. The main gimmick of him is that he keeps resummoning himself, so you keep getting meat shields while also constantly mana accumulating. So once you get like 20, 30 magic, this guy really starts to be good. And of course, once you can start getting the higher range, like 40, 50, 60 in various game modes, he starts to get absurdly good value, as all mass destroys do in the current state of the game, as you get 100% of all mana from destroyed gems currently. So it ends up working out really, really good for that kind of value, but it's already so low rarity. You probably already have it, but if you don't, it's one of those things like Leprechaun where you definitely want to pick it up if you don't have it already. Anyways, overall, mostly just some low rarity stuff. High rarity stuff's a bit of a gamble in hopes that you don't get the bad mythic. And keep in mind, it could take about 1,000 keys before you even get a single mythic, and 1 in 3 of those will be the worst mythic you've ever seen. But anyways, that's the rundown on event keys. As far as the guild-related event, we got pretty standard raids. As far as raids, just use whatever the new raid troop is, in this case the Retribution, and you'll get double magic and double score on them. You can use them as your primary damage source for pretty much everything, or build other damage sources in if you happen to have them. As far as the rewards, pretty same as always, not really much different here, though of course you do have to partake at least some amount, unlike some other modes, in order to be able to even claim any of your loot from your guild. So it does have some forced contribution there, though ideally you want to be doing at least tier 3 to help out your guild. This not only helps out the guild quite substantially, but will also give you the weapon, as well as a copy of the troop. The new weapon, not too bad, explodes all yellow gems, grants a random status effect to all Whitehelm, and then summons the Whitehelm troop, pretty standard explodey weapon. Ends up having barrier on casts, like quite a few things from Whitehelm has. Overall, not the best, not the worst, but definitely very usable. And obviously on a week like this, where we have multiple different restricted modes on Whitehelm, not only is the raid boss restricted to Whitehelm, but also, of course, Underspire is restricted to Whitehelm. And of course, in PvP, you can also have a Whitehelm or even Divine restriction where this potentially might end up seeing some usage. So overall, pretty okay weapon, very situational, but very useful for this week, and definitely advise getting it just so you don't have to get it later. It is way cheaper getting this for, what is it, 210, 250? I think it's 210. 210 gems than it is going and getting into Soul Forge later. Plus, you need to buy up to the 2nd tier anyways to go get the raid troop. So you can basically double your points. Anyways, as far as other things we have going on this week, Tuesday, we have ourselves the faction event for Hall of Guardians. Wednesday, we have the little Peace Pigeon for Divine bonus. Thursday, we have ourselves the class trial for Priest. Priest overall, pretty, oh no, it has its use case. The most noteworthy thing about it is it's a +2 yellow hero class. It's a little bit weird because we have 2 +3 hero classes, but this one is a +2 into yellow. It's okay. It's very rarely used. It only has 10% bonus stats this week instead of 20. I believe the bonus this week is 10% to Divine and Knights rather than 10% to Divines and Whitehelm. So it does only have 10% instead of 20, so you can use it, but it's okay. You're really only using it if you're building like a pure Whitehelm team, so obviously a week like this gets a little bit more usage. But on an average other week, you're generally not really using it that often. And this Friday, we have no event, aka Arena. We also don't have a Mythic this Friday, as there are, of course, 31 days in this month. This Friday is a 31st, meaning that next month will be the latest possible date that you can have a Mythic release on the first Friday of a month, being the 7th. So no Mythic this Friday, but we'll get it really deep into next month on the 7th. So, yeah, it's mostly just the Whitehelm wrap-up week. Is pretty much what this week can be summarized as. Before we get over to Soulforge, of course, really important to end up mentioning. We were mentioning the Kingdom Pass and Season Pass and all that. But if you do want to conclude these, this is the final week that you can conclude either of them. The 10-week-long campaign pass is concluding this week, so if you want to go earn up to all the rewards, you end up getting all of these following stats, as well as all the rewards along the way, as well as a Mythic if you're on the paid side and all the other things that go along with it. But even on free side, you still want to be doing it. There's some deed books there. There's some writs there. There's a bunch of extra stats that you can have for the rest of this week there, so pretty useful. Aside from that, of course, don't get confused with that with the Kingdom Pass. We also have this going on for Whitehelm, going on for the next 7 days. This is a daily, unfortunately, unlike the other one that you can kind of forget about and it'll probably get done automatically. But this you actually do have to go do every single day. You got to kill 10 of these Battle Crashers. Doing so will give you 4 additional tiers. If you're wondering how far you should be, if you've done all of them, you should be at 33 right now. If you have only done the free battles and you haven't done any skips and you've gotten every single crown so far, you should be at tier 33. If you're anything less, then that means you end up skipping any, or skipping some amount over the last week. So do be mindful that you will only be able to earn 7 days more worth, or technically 6 more days if you already got today's worth, which is, how many tiers is that? 6 times 4, that's 24 more tiers then. So do be wary of that as far as if you're trying to reach any kind of certain reward. I do generally advise doing this. You get quite a bit of deeds, you get a weapon at the end on the free side, so even on the free side you're still getting something. And obviously if you paid the $8 for it, you definitely want to go all the way. Allows you to get a bunch of content early, allows you to max a bunch of stuff. Also has 3 deed books, enough to max out a Mythic, and a few other knick-knack loot along the way, so definitely worth considering. It doesn't take that long to end up killing these, as per usual. You just basically go to any quick kill location you want. Go like Rowain build, Dust Devil quick kill, whatever you want to do. And they appear pretty frequently. It takes like 10 minutes or less, and you're likely to get a lot of them passively, just from doing PvP and other various game modes throughout the game. As you can see, we already got one. You just have to do that 10 times in a given day for the next 7 days, as well as the last 7 days, and then you'll get all the rewards. Anyways, aside from that, let's go now into the Soulforge. So, I didn't actually peek at this yet. Let's see, do we have anything good in Soulforge? Oh, I have Argris. So, I have Argris is an interesting one. Now that all of the things are voted in, I'm not sure how often we'll really get Orc in PvP, because now the Dark Alliance gets to vote on all the Outer Ring. So we voted for things like Dragon, I think Goblin was one of them, you know, like some of the easier ones, generally speaking. Though, one really funny thing is everyone voted to not have Stellarix, Takshaka, and Middle. All 3 colors that run are not the Stellarix, Takshaka team, so apparently everyone in Dark Alliance does not want that team, which kind of makes sense. This is a really annoying meta. But yeah, all 3 Inner Circle is not that team. I found that really funny. But Outer Circle should be a lot teamer now, because you're not going to have like the super annoying categories that are just completely useless. Because generally speaking, you know, Dark Alliance will end up voting for whatever the easier ones are, because it benefits everyone. Unless they want to troll on a given day, but then all of us have to collectively troll. But yeah, the reason I say that is we might not have Orc that often. It really depends what it's up against as far as its categories. But I don't know. We haven't really had Orc as an option. I don't really think it was really on the voting block much, or if at all, last weekend. However, maybe it'll be more frequent, maybe it'll be less frequent. I have no clue. We haven't really gotten to see it yet. However, with that being said, I have Argris really, really good in 2 specific categories. I guess Daemon as well. But the 2 main oh yeah, I guess I might as well include Daemon. Because some people were actually voting high on Daemon. I was actually wondering that the other night. Like, why are people voting so high on Daemon? And I think it might actually be because of Eye of Argris. I always think of him as like the Groshnock and Orc option, but he can run for Daemon too. So he does cover that as well. So yeah, it is a good idea to maybe consider it, because Daemon got really, really close to winning 2 votes. Did it actually win this week? I can't remember. We'll need to go double check the Outer Ring. But yeah, it was being voted on pretty heavily compared to some other option. And I think it's mostly because of Eye of Argris. Eye of Argris is a very free win if you have 3 or 4 of him. Ideally 3, which is like Hero or something. But the main premise of him is he creates 2 Doom Skulls at the start of every single turn. And this is very, very, very strong. It's 6 Doom Skulls per turn. This is almost guaranteed going to give you a skull, potentially even double skull if those end up matching and then you get it somewhere else. You'll be able to get a lot of skull pressure with this, and if you just have something really tanky in your first slot that's really skull resistant, then you don't even have to really worry about the enemy backfiring on you, because you'll not only have first turn advantage, but you'll also be able to go and be really tanky to the point where, you know, skulls won't really matter. So really, really strong overall. In the case of Daemon, you have things like Orgoltha if you really want to tank. In the case of Orc, you have, or Groshnok, you have Hero, of course. And for all of them, you can technically run Hero. But it's really good in those really niche categories because Groshnok, Demon, Orc are all three categories that, generally speaking, aren't that great as far as if you don't have Eye of Argus, but are really absurdly free if you have like 3 Eye of Argus. For the most part, you wouldn't really try going out of your way to craft multiple of him unless you're really late in the game. I definitely wouldn't advise this over like Triple Ironhawk. Obviously, Triple Ironhawk is way, way, way better and like one of the first things you should prioritize. Also, of course, if you're still lacking a lot of other just generally good mythics, you probably don't want a Triple Eye of Argus before you've gotten a lot of those. However, if you are getting to the point where you're kind of running out of things to use diamonds on, Triple Eye of Argus, really good for a lot of things in PvP right now. Aside from that, is that it? Yeah, it's pretty much the Eye of Argus. Though do keep in mind, you don't get that much value from 1 Eye of Argus. He's one of those troops where 2 and 3 are substantially more value than 1. Similar to things like Ironhawk and such. Anyways, as far as weapons are concerned, is a Whitehelm event week. Most noteworthy thing here is Doomed. Actually, I would probably say Divine Protector, actually. There's a few okay ones. Divine Protector, while I don't believe I use it on any of the teams, is a really, really good Divine weapon. It ends up creating a bunch of red and yellow and really good in pure Divine teams. Used to be really meta back in the day before Divines got nerfed into the ground, and Divinish Ball still has 40% mana start for some reason, but still really overall good weapon. You have Doom Scripture, which sees a bit less usage these days now that we don't have Guild War, however, still a pretty strong weapon nonetheless, so maybe worth considering if you don't have it laying around. A lot of good utility explodey weapons, like Fist of Heaven and such. Aside from that, wouldn't really say anything too high. Obviously, you want to get this from the other mode. And let me just double check because I know I will eventually forget to mention on a given week that Dustbringer or the Ruby weapon has their various component. It's worth always checking just in case. But no, none of them have their corresponding component because whenever those components do come around, you do want to make sure you craft them if you haven't already. So far, I believe we're still missing 2 for the Ruby. And while all of them have rotated for the Dustbringer, obviously if you're currently missing any, then you still have to go and wait till they rotate and then go get them. So always should be keeping an eye on Dustbringer and Ruby Mask, even if I don't mention it in any given video, just to make sure that if the corresponding piece that you are missing is in Soulforge on a given week. But this week is not one of those. Anyways, aside from that, let's go and get into all the teams. So all these will be in the description below if you want to go and copy paste any of them. We're going to be starting all the way from the top, which is raids. For raids, we are forced to have to use Retribution for double points. Aside from that, the rest of the team has to be Whitehelm. So anything from this category over here. So as far as what we're going to be running for the higher rarity team, if you have the yellow Celestial Dragon, going to be your best friend for pretty much every Whitehelm restriction this week. It's very, very, very hard. Has a lot of score reduction, spell reduction, really tanky. If we're using Angry Mob as our main mana accumulator, we'll be able to mash destroy. Even if he's blocked on one color, you just double up on his other. So in this case, we're doubling up on red because he's blocked on brown due to the Solar Earthus. And then we just rush him up, get an infinite mana, and we're good from there. Unfortunately, since we don't have an Empower that can go into him because Mercy can't feed yellow into him, we are going to manually have to take 2 swipes in order to get him to full mana, or 1 if you put a Holy Saint Astra onto your team, though I guess you could do that if you don't have Archdiva. Replace Holy Saint Astra there, and you'll only need 1 red instead of 2, most likely. Next, we have Retribution, which of course is forced to be on the team. As far as what he does, I'm not sure if I even mentioned it earlier, mostly because it's not particularly relevant. He deals some damage to an enemy, boosted by Angel Gems, which is a very bad mechanic overall. There's just not enough Angel Gems to really justify using Angel Gems. And if they are a boss, obviously he'll do up to 5 times damage based on his Ascension. And he also then creates 2 Angel Gems. For the most part, it's basically just a pretty standard raid troop that just happens to create a few Angel Gems here and there. And only noteworthy thing, I guess, is a little bit of score reduction, but you're generally using it in a spot where it's not like your tank, so not really too relevant there. And we're using Archdiva. This is mostly so we can double cast Solar Earthus. However, as I mentioned earlier, if you don't have that, you can downgrade into Holy Saint Astra and get a pretty similar effect of your team, as we're mostly using this to make sure Solar Earthus doesn't die, but more so in order to cast him twice, as after we cast Solar Earthus once, he will then have 0 out of 30 mana, then we cast Archdiva, and he'll have 30 out of 30 mana. And while that doesn't increase how much damage he'll do, it will allow him to double cast, which is very devastating. Anyways, next we have the lower rarity of the raids. I am using a legend here, but keep in mind this is a faction legend. Faction legends are always easy to get, same as faction epics. Honestly, faction legends are easier to get than the average non-epic. Like, honestly, I think it might be easier to get... Actually, there's not a good example on this team. But generally speaking, I would say faction legends are easier to get than standard epics. So for that reason, we are using this. It is very tanky. It ends up having 50% score reduction. Inflicts silence on your target whenever you get hit by a skull, and can gain even more durability. For the most part, you're not really going to be casting this, though it does have an enchant mechanic if you want. We're mostly just using it as a meat shield, Angry Mob for all of our mana, similar to before. We're using the shield for even more mana in case your Angry Mob's not enough. It also has backup resummon, though so does Angry Mob, but you have double backup resummon. And we're making our entire damage source retribution. You just go and try to kill the raid boss immediately. Then once they're all down, you just keep poking with this and just strip them down. So we are using retribution as pretty much our solo damage source. But keep in mind, in raids, it does have double magic this week, so it is likely to be among one of your better damage sources, especially if you do not have things like Guard's Avatar, which is a bit of a liability due to his armor value, or Solarithus, which is good, but, you know, if you don't have it, then the next best alternative, if we're going down to Legend, is almost nothing. I guess it's like Gargoyle, like if you're looking for a damage source in that regard. We do have one that we end up using on the very low team, but he has the same liability that that Guard's Avatar has, which is High Paladin. I'll be showing this in a cheap Underspire team, which is worth mentioning because Underspire and Raid team is pretty much the same. Not necessarily the same, but, you know, you can almost run the same team. The only difference is Retribution doesn't have double magic. So generally speaking, in the Underspire team, you're not going to be using Retribution for the most part, whereas in Raids, you pretty much have to. So in those kind of situations, you know, High Paladin, just for that extra damage. Anyways, we'll get to that when we get to that, as it's all the way at the bottom of these teams. So, this is the first time we can use Buff Guard's Avatar. Well, theoretically, obviously, we could have been using it last week, but, you know, this is the first mode where he's particularly relevant. So, he's already kind of been pretty good for running Tuesday faction events if you just want to get in, get out, get your rewards. And he's even better now at doing that. He now has a 1-to-1 ratio on his magic, which in this case is giving him about 30-ish or so extra damage. And he also ends up gaining 4 extra armor every single time anything on your team casts a spell, which comes out to 2 additional damage to all enemies on top of how much he was already gaining. So overall, pretty nice little buff. This mostly just makes it so he is a lot better in that 20 to 80 range. I always mention he's 20 to 100, but, you know, it's technically 20 to 80 as far as completing it out. But it makes him a lot better in this range. If you weren't already one-shotting at 80, you probably are now. So, the other benefit of this is he now gains the same benefit from magic as he does from armor. So unlike things on Tesla teams where you're pretty much forced to have to go armor buff because she doesn't use magic at all, Guard's Avatar now equally uses both magic and armor, which means you don't have to set the Guard token, quite ironically, when using Guard anymore. You actually set the Nisha token for extra magic, because since the benefit is the both, same for both, and the main thing they were trying to buff is Guard's Avatar, you now go magic because everything else on your team will now gain a benefit from that magic. So Sir Quan Hadley, if you have to cast him, he's going to have extra magic. Harpy Mage, or, you know, whatever else you do for mana accumulators, while it's not particularly relevant with these two, personally, you know, if they happen to be ones that are relevant with extra magic, they would gain more benefit from it as well. So yeah, just run magic with Guard's Avatar now instead of armor, which seems kind of ironic given that it's called a Guard token, the armor token, but yeah, do not use the Guard token with Guard anymore. It is now better to always use the magic one, assuming you have it. Anyways, next we have ourselves the High Rarity team on the yellow-brown restriction. And for this, we're going to be running a Catharix build. You might actually recognize this team. It is pretty common in PvP if you don't have a Stellaric, so I figured I'd show it. I haven't actually mentioned it in any video yet, but you've probably seen it at least 100 times if you play PvP on a daily basis. So, yeah, it's a pretty decent and popular team because it's really strong. One thing that's really nice about it is it scales infinitely because of the insta-kill. So regardless of what the stats are in the enemy team, they could be all 1,000. This will still end up hitting through, so it's pretty nice. Tuck Shock, obviously, for mana accumulation. Wand for mana accumulation and Bless and or Curse. Mostly Bless. And Catharix to kill everything. And if you somehow lose your Catharix, running Tuck Shock as your damage source is perfectly fine. Next, we have ourselves the Pure Faction team. For this, we have to use the 5 troops from the Hall of Guardians. As far as Hall of Guardians is concerned, there are 3 that are a little bit better than the others. Silent Sentinel, we end up showing this on the cheaper team as well. It's really good at tanking, good score reduction, spell reduction, and has that silence. You don't, similar to the other team, you generally don't really cast this unless it's about to die. Your main damage source is actually Gargoyle and Ethereal Sentry. Ethereal Sentry, the whole point of this is it gives attack based on something's armor. So ideally you want to get one of these onto your first slot before it has hit in any amount of damage. Then you want to go buff up your Gargoyle from when your Silent Sentinel inevitably dies. Then after it does, you'll have a beefed up Gargoyle with a very high attack value, as well as a Silent Sentinel that has some amount of higher attack. And then you just keep spamming your Gargoyle until you win. This is somewhat relevant because this thing actually deals damage based on how much attack is across your entire team. So not only are you giving yourself more attack damage in the sense that your skulls are doing more damage, but you're also gaining more attack damage for your 2 Gargoyles, which are of course your main damage source overall. Next we have ourselves the Priest class event. As far as this, we have to use specifically Divine from Whitehelm. As far as this, we're running a doubled Paladin into Mercy, using Mercy into any yellow weapon you have, in this case Dawnbringer. If you don't have Dawnbringer, just do anything else that hits all enemies that is yellow. And yeah, just rush down like that. Priest class event, as with all class events, you're just going and doing the free battles, get your free 25 gems, and that's it. Next we have ourselves the Underspire. As far as, oh, actually, these are the last teams too, because we don't have a, it feels weird, it feels like we haven't had a weekend event in a while. Well, I guess we just have Bounty Hunter. But, Yeah, we have no weekend event this weekend because of Arena, which of course is a completely draft-based system, which is impossible to pre-make teams for. Anyways, as far as Underspire is concerned, this of course is a Whitehelm restriction as well. However, unlike the other Whitehelm restriction of raids, you do not have to use the raid troop. You're allowed to use anything you want, as long as it's from Whitehelm and a Whitehelm weapon. So, similarly for the high rarity team, if you have Solarithus, it will be your entire team pretty much. You could even run multiple if you have, though I personally do only have the one because we got so lucky on them, which I guess is somewhat unlucky because in situations like this we can only run one, but still perfectly fine. We're running the Shield of Vengeance in case this somehow dies. Very unlikely given this team, given how much reduction it has, and given that we're giving it like infinite durability. However, it can die, and if it does, we just have Resummon ready to go. It's also a nice just little explodey weapon to just do some backup mana. Mercy, of course, spam yellow. We're going to be denying out our purple, but we'll be getting a ton of yellow, which goes into Solarithus, and any excess will be able to go into Archdiva. And of course, then our Archdiva will then give full mana to our Solarithus, so we can double cast. So we cast with Solarithus, we get full mana on this, or we get full mana on both. Cast Solarithus, then cast this on Solarithus, then cast Solarithus again, and you just did hundreds of damage in a very short duration of time. And you just use your 2 mana accumulators to get them to that point. Next, we have ourselves the low rarity team, where we're going more of an angry mob route. We're using Topaz Giant. One thing that's really nice about him is even if you have lower magic, he will still be gaining a lot of mana, potentially even more than your angry mob if you have really, really low magic, because all of his mana accumulation is static. He will always convert 5 purple gems into yellow giant gems, which gain additional 5 mana and do their little explode thing, and he will always create a yellow gem when he takes skull damage. So unlike something like angry mob, your magic level has no dependence on how much mana he accumulates. The only thing that your stats matter for is how much damage he does on his ability, and how tanky he'll end up being overall. Next, we have ourselves Angry Mob, which will be for Resummon for when the Topaz Giant inevitably dies. So you'll have double Angry Mob there, which will also be a good backup mana accumulation. In case that wasn't already enough backup mana accumulation, we'll have Shield of Vengeance, which also has Resummon, in case Angry Mob also wasn't enough mana accumulation or Resummon. However, you could replace this out for a damage source if you so choose, especially if you feel like you lack in damage here. You can just double up on a damage source either with a hero weapon or even replacing out hero entirely for just a second thing that does damage. And then we're going with High Paladin. We're mentioning him earlier, but he does do quite a bit of damage. One of the main reasons being is if you're using a pure Whitehelm team, you're actually gaining a lot of armor. Obviously these bonuses will be lower earlier on in the game. However, regardless, it'll still be pretty big numbers overall. You're definitely going to be getting at least a dozen or 2 dozen extra armor, if not even more, depending on how upgraded you have them. But this will be pretty good in order to give High Paladin his boost ratio. Not only does he have 20% extra stats this week, as all Divine Knights have 20% this week, however, he also ends up having a pretty nice boost ratio, 2 to 1. So he deals a bunch of damage, nice, to the 2 strongest enemies, boosted by his armor at a 2 to 1. And given that he'll have a pretty high armor value, obviously a bit lower than this earlier on in the game, but in our particular situation, he'll be doing over 100 additional damage to 2 units, which is pretty substantial. Unfortunately, it is on strongest enemy, which are the ones that are least likely to die to a hit. The strongest is the ones with the highest durability. However, the overall amount of damage that he's doing is very substantial, and then you just poke them down with things like Topaz Giant and such, as he's allowed to target anything. And you can also put another damage source there if you feel like you lack damage, given that these 2 are technically mana accumulators. But anyways, guys, that'll wrap it up for now. We will be back, or I mean, well, I guess we'll be back tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as we do. I'll be going over messing with raids and all that, but yeah, as far as the alliance system with the new patch, it didn't really do that much. I'm actually kind of surprised. It also doesn't really matter too much what alliance you're in. If you're in the bigger alliance, you're gaining slightly more gold marks. If you're in a smaller one, you're basically just gaining extra stats for PvP, which just makes PvP easier. But I don't know, we'll be messing with it here and there. But overall, aside from just doing your 6 daily alliance battles, you don't really have to worry about this too much. It's basically just an extra daily. Just join an alliance, doesn't really matter which, just pick one. Then just go and do your 6 daily battles. And that's really all you have to do with this, and you get a bunch of extra gold marks. You get, I believe, 15? Because the first time that you do 3 battles, you get 5, and then at the 5th battle, you also get 10. So you have like 1 battle of leeway. But yeah, that's all you have to do. And this is basically just a free 15 gold marks per day in order to put towards inevitable deed books. So not too much of a patch, but we'll see what comes up in new ones. Of course, 8.0 could potentially drop this year as well before the end of the year, so that'll be a pretty big one if that is coming in the next 6-7 months or so. And we'll just have to look forward to that. But anyways, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful week. If you still have any other questions about alliances or anything else, feel free to leave in the comment section below. I'll put the change notes in the description as well if you want to go read through them, as I pretty briefly went over as far as what that was. But if you do want to go down the entire list, the whole patch notes will be linked below if you want to go see them, as are all the teams as per usual if you want to go copy-paste any of them. Anyways, guys, have a wonderful week, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for watching.